The termination letter landed on his desk just minutes after he signed the papers allowing doctors to disconnect the machines that had kept his wife alive. By lunchtime on Christmas Eve, he had lost the love of his life, his job of 23 loyal years, and the only security he had left. The woman who dismissed him never even looked him in the eyes as security escorted him through the lobby carrying a cardboard box filled with family photos. 5 years later, those same glass doors opened for him again, but this time, he walked in as the new owner of the company, carrying evidence that would send the former CEO to prison. Before we begin this unforgettable journey, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in this world, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us humanity is never truly lost. Graham Mercer had never imagined that the happiest memories of his life would become the very reason his heart nearly stopped beating. Every lunch break had once been spent calling his wife, Clara, simply to hear her laugh. Every holiday bonus had gone toward little adventures together because they had never been blessed with children, but they had built a beautiful life filled with love instead of possessions. Clara volunteered at libraries reading to children recovering from illnesses, while Graham quietly fixed neighbors' broken fences without charging a penny. Their world was ordinary, but it was rich in every way that truly mattered. Then came the diagnosis. Clara's aggressive illness consumed every dollar they had saved. Graham emptied retirement accounts, refinanced their small house, sold his treasured vintage truck, and accepted every overtime shift available. For months he barely slept, arriving at the office before sunrise and leaving only after ensuring every client was satisfied. His performance never dropped despite the weight crushing his soul. The company he served was known as Alderstone Financial Group, one of the fastest-growing investment firms in the region. Its founder had retired years earlier, leaving control to a young executive named Victoria Holloway. Brilliant, ambitious, and relentlessly obsessed with quarterly profits, Victoria believed emotions weakened businesses. She often spoke about employees as if they were numbers in a spreadsheet rather than human beings with families. When Graham requested only 3 unpaid days to remain beside Clara during her final treatments, Victoria approved the leave with obvious irritation. She privately complained that loyal employees had become expensive liabilities. On Christmas Eve, Graham sat beside Clara's hospital bed holding her trembling hand as sunlight poured gently through the windows. She smiled despite the pain and squeezed his fingers one final time before quietly slipping away. Her peaceful expression somehow made the silence even more unbearable. Still wearing the same clothes, Graham drove to the office because human resources insisted important paperwork required his signature before the holidays. He believed they were arranging compassionate leave. Instead, Victoria informed him that restructuring required eliminating his position immediately. She explained that prolonged personal issues had affected organizational efficiency, although every performance review praised his dedication. She slid the termination documents across the polished conference table without offering condolences for the woman who had died less than 2 hours earlier. Several employees lowered their heads in shame as Graham carried his belongings through the lobby. The framed photograph of Clara slipped from the box and shattered on the marble floor. No one dared help him while security hurried him outside. The humiliation broke something inside him that grief alone had not managed to destroy. The following months were darker than anything Graham had ever imagined. He sold his house and rented a tiny apartment above a bakery. He accepted temporary maintenance jobs despite decades of financial expertise. Every morning he walked past families shopping, children laughing, and couples holding hands beneath Christmas decorations that remained long after the season ended in his heart. Yet Clara had always believed that bitterness was the one disease love could never cure. Remembering her words became the only reason Graham continued waking up every morning. One spring afternoon, while repairing shelves inside an old community center, Graham met an elderly gentleman named Leonard Ashcroft. Leonard quietly observed Graham refusing extra payment after discovering the center struggled financially. Instead of pocketing the money, Graham suggested buying books for children. Leonard asked why a man with such financial knowledge was fixing broken cabinets. For the first time, Graham shared everything. Leonard listened without interruption. Only later did Graham discover Leonard was the retired founder of Alderstone Financial Group. Leonard had stepped away years earlier believing Victoria would preserve the company's values. Instead, she transformed it into an empire driven by fear, intimidation, and accounting practices that increasingly troubled former board members. Leonard was quietly investigating disturbing reports involving fraudulent investment transfers, illegal tax schemes, and manipulated financial statements. Unfortunately, nobody inside the company was willing to testify because they feared losing everything that he remembered Graham as one of the few employees whose honesty had never been questioned. Rather than offering sympathy, Leonard offered something far greater. He offered trust. Over the next several years Graham worked alongside Leonard rebuilding neglected charitable investment programs while studying every document Leonard uncovered. Graham never sought revenge. He simply wanted truth. As Leonard's health gradually declined, he made a decision that shocked every legal advisor around him. He transferred controlling ownership of Alderstone Financial Group into a charitable trust led by Graham Mercer. The announcement stunned the business world. Investors questioned it, employees celebrated quietly, Victoria laughed publicly, insisting Graham lacked the experience to challenge her authority despite having spent decades building many of the company's strongest client relationships. She underestimated how carefully Leonard had prepared him. The first morning Graham returned to headquarters as chairman, sunlight reflected across the same lobby where security had once escorted him out carrying a cardboard box. This time employees spontaneously stood and applauded. Several older workers wiped tears from their faces. The receptionist who had secretly mailed sympathy flowers after Clara's death embraced him before quickly apologizing for becoming emotional. Graham simply smiled. He had imagined this moment many times, yet revenge brought no satisfaction, only purpose remained. Rather than firing anyone, Graham spent his first weeks listening. He visited every department. He learned employees skipped medical appointments because insurance had been reduced, parents missed children's school events for mandatory weekend work, older staff feared speaking honestly, young graduates believed cruelty was the price of success. The company had become wealthy while its people slowly disappeared inside it. Graham changed policies immediately. Family emergency leave expanded. Mental health support became available. Holiday bonuses returned. Profit-sharing programs rewarded every employee instead of only executives. Some investors protested, most stayed after productivity climbed higher than ever before. Meanwhile, Graham quietly worked with forensic accountants examining thousands of transactions approved during Victoria's leadership. The evidence became impossible to ignore: shell companies, hidden accounts, forged authorizations. Millions of dollars diverted into luxury properties through elaborate financial deception. The deeper investigators looked, the darker everything became. Victoria remained confident because she believed every questionable record had been erased. She never realized Leonard had preserved archived backups years earlier after noticing unusual discrepancies. The final confirmation arrived from an unlikely source. A former accounting assistant named Eleanor Briggs had resigned shortly after Graham's dismissal. She had witnessed altered financial reports but lacked the courage to speak while Victoria remained in power. Seeing Graham restore compassion throughout the company inspired her to come forward. Her testimony connected every missing piece. Federal investigators moved swiftly. One bright winter morning, several unmarked vehicles quietly entered the company parking area. Employees watched through office windows as investigators walked directly toward Victoria's executive suite. She attempted to maintain her confidence. Moments later, that confidence disappeared. Boxes of financial evidence filled conference tables, digital records displayed every hidden transaction, witness statements confirmed deliberate fraud. When investigators informed Victoria she was under arrest for financial crimes, she finally looked toward Graham standing silently near the entrance. For several long seconds neither spoke. The same hallway where Graham had once been publicly humiliated now witnessed a completely different ending. He could have smiled, he could have celebrated, he could have reminded everyone how she destroyed his life on the worst day imaginable. Instead, he simply lowered his eyes, because Clara had taught him that another person's downfall should never become someone else's greatest joy. Victoria left the building in handcuffs while employees watched in stunned silence. News channels covered the scandal for weeks. The courts later sentenced her to years in prison after overwhelming evidence proved systematic fraud affecting employees, investors, and charitable funds. Many believed Graham had finally achieved revenge. They misunderstood everything. His greatest victory had never been sending Victoria to jail. Justice belonged to the law. His victory was transforming the company she had nearly destroyed into something worthy of the people working inside it. Over the following years, Alderstone became nationally recognized not only for financial success but also for employee well-being, ethical leadership, scholarship programs, and community investment. The conference room where Graham had once been fired became the Clara Mercer Foundation Hall. Its walls displayed photographs of volunteers reading to children, supporting cancer patients, building affordable housing, and funding education for struggling families. Every Christmas Eve the company closed early. Employees spent the afternoon volunteering throughout the community while receiving full pay. No one would ever again have to choose between work and saying goodbye to someone they loved. One afternoon, Graham stood before Clara's portrait inside the foundation hall as warm sunlight streamed through the windows exactly as it had in the hospital years before. He realized grief never truly disappears. It simply changes shape. Some pain becomes wisdom. Some tears become compassion. Some endings quietly become the beginning of countless second chances for people we may never even meet. If Clara could have seen what her love inspired, she would never have cared about the titles, the buildings, or the wealth. She would have cared that kindness survived. She would have cared that people who once feared coming to work now smiled as they entered. She would have cared that generosity defeated greed without becoming cruel itself. Before this story ends, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us what lesson touched your heart the most, or share a moment when kindness changed your life forever. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that life has an extraordinary way of returning what we give to others. Power may last for a season, wealth may come and go, but compassion leaves a legacy that no courtroom can erase, no fortune can buy, and no tragedy can ever destroy. Sometimes the person the world throws away becomes the one who rebuilds it with gentleness, proving that the strongest victory is never revenge. It is becoming the kind of person who refuses to let pain steal their humanity.